Welcome to Business Startup for Boomers. This is the show that brings you inspiration and ideas to start your own boomer business. Here's your hosts, Larry Aarons and Jeff Williams.
You know, sometimes all it takes is just a little nudge or a great idea to get your business started. If you're a fellow boomer like us, I'm Larry Aarons. Alongside is Jeff Williams from the worldwide headquarters of Biz Starters. They're in suburban Chicago. Jeff, good to talk to you once again.
Hi, Larry. Great to be here.
For those who aren't familiar, Biz Starters is in the business of helping boomers get off the ground entrepreneurially. And they have a whole virtual incubator coaching program that will help your business get off to a fast start. Now, you've been working on a new ebook, Jeff, and we're going to borrow one of the chapters from it and talk about it today. If the ebook is not yet available, it will be soon. And if you're hearing this a little later on, look for the ebook on the bizstarters.com website. One of the chapters you have, Jeff, is called Borrow the Best. I like the phrase. What does that mean?
Well, this is something that I have used for pretty much all 25 years I've been in business. And I figured out pretty quickly, very early in my entrepreneurial career, that if I had to go up the learning curve completely on every new thing I needed to run my company, I was never going to grow because it was just basically me at that point in time. So what this means is that I'm continually looking in the world around me to see how other people have done things well. That's the key here. Is you want to riff off of people who've done things well. Don't borrow from somebody who's a failure or not doing very well. And I'll just give you a quick example of my very first. I was probably in business about 6 months at the time this one happened. I was at a trade show here in Chicago. And back in those days, this was before the internet, a lot of people used to use printed brochures and distribute them, mail them to people, hand them out, whatever. Anyway, I was walking down one of the aisles at the trade show, and I noticed this stack of brochures on a table. Nobody seemed to be there, so I took one. I assumed that's what they wanted us to do. Well, I really liked the look of the brochure. Mm-hmm. Not only was it well written, but it really had a nice look to it. And I had gone to my local printer a couple weeks before just to talk about some sales promotion, and he wanted a lot of money to do a brochure. I think he wanted like $1,000 to design a brochure. And I thought, man, this is maybe I can find something more affordable. Anyway, I called up the company whose brochure it was, and I said, would you mind telling me who designed it for you? And they were very gracious and said, yes, here's our local designer. And I called her up and said, can you do something for me like this, and what would it cost? Well, she only wanted like $300 to do it. And I said, okay. So I ended up with a really knockout brochure. I got a number of compliments on this. And this was the very first technique I borrowed from somebody else.
In other words, you're not stealing the idea, you're just borrowing the expertise.
Right. It's almost like I'm getting like when you make clothing, you use a pattern, mm-hmm. and you can use the pattern over and over again. I get patterns from the world around me. I see the way other people have structured things, and then I kind of figure out, I guess in the technical world they call this reverse engineering.
Yeah.
But I'll give you another example here as we were going along. In the late 90s, of course, the internet came to become a very important tool. And I launched my first website in 1998. It was just a little thing. I did it with a program that no longer exists called Microsoft Front Page. It was the first program out there to do it. So I put up a pretty nice little site. But I noticed that other sites could do things my site couldn't do. And I couldn't quite figure out exactly how this happened. Well, I was at a luncheon at the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm talking to the guy next to me who I just met that morning. Turns out he was a computer guy. He said, don't you know that you can find out the code that runs any web page just by clicking on the right part of your mouse on the computer screen? And there's a command called view source. It shows you all the code that runs all the pages. Huh. And I thought, oh, man, that's interesting. And so I went in there. Now, of course, it was all Greek to me at first because there's a ton of code. Right. For example, on a typical website at the top, you'll have a series of commands that are called navigation. There are probably 85 lines of code just to control the navigation bar.
Oh, my goodness.
It's incredible.
Yes.
So I called the guy up. I said, listen, I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm looking at. And he said, well, come on over and I'll show you. So he showed me, where to scroll down the page to find the stuff that I could safely change, because you don't want to mess up the other stuff. So basically, over a period of 3 years in the late 90s, early 2000s, I taught myself what's called HTML programming, which is the way most websites run. Now, there are more advanced programs today, but they're still kind of run off of this. Now, does this mean that I sit here and do websites all day? No, I have a team that does those for me and for our startup clients. But what this does mean is if I get a brainstorm at 11 o'clock at night, and I want to get it up on the website, I can do it myself.
Very practical. So what we're saying here is if you notice something that somebody in business is doing, whether it's a brochure, a website, a marketing plan, you name it, anything in business-related topics, you can go to them and ask them, hey, who did that for you? And most times, your fellow business people will be happy to share. That's the whole lesson here from Borrow the Best. All right, Jeff, how can people call you at BizStarters to get started on their own boomer business?
Well, go to bizstarters.com, bizstarters.com, and a little bit down my homepage is an accent box where a little introduction for me, and then right below it says Book a Call with Jeff. Click there. It'll take you into my calendar, shows you all the days and times I have available for a free 30-minute phone call to talk about anything you want to talk about related to starting a business.
Roughly how many of those do you do a week, typically?
I do, in a busy week, I'll do 10 of them.
Wow. So people are doing it. Great. Jeff, always good talking to you. Remember, borrow the best. It's great advice. Jeff Williams, everybody, thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
This has been Business Startup for Boomers with your hosts, Larry Aarons and Jeff Williams, the show that brings you inspiration and ideas to start your own boomer business. See you next time.